So I just got back from watching Andor, and I am very happy to say it's the most unique and immersive Star Wars series to come out of Disney Plus yet. It has a grounded feel the other Star Wars shows have been lacking. And I'm not saying they're all bad, I'm just saying this has been my favorite so far. And I'm very optimistic for the following season, whenever that airs. While we wait for more of Cassian Andor's planet-hopping adventures, I'm reviewing the season we currently have available. As for the other shows, I really loved the first season of The Mandalorian. I also enjoyed Season 2, although it was not as much as the first season. I watched the first episode of Book of Boba, but got bored and skipped the rest of the series. That was until I heard episodes 5 and 6 were phenomenal, so I watched those, and they were great! Obi-Wan Kenobi was okay. The Obi-Wan Vader stuff was really good, but the series had issues with the pacing and probably should have been a movie. On the other hand, Andor feels like it was meant to be a proper TV show. The show's creators learned from the mistakes of the other shows and created something with true care and effort put into it. Andor feels like it is from the George Lucas era of Star Wars. More specifically, it feels like it's straight from Legends with world building and details from the pre-Disney era. For example, there's a mention of the Rakatans in the 4th episode. In case you don't know what those are, the Rakatans are a species that created the Infinite Empire thousands of years before the events of the Skywalker saga. The species appears near the end of the first Knights of the Old Republic video game, so that might make you remember them if you played those games. Small details such as this make the show fit into the Star Wars galaxy, but enough talking about the small stuff, it's time to get to the core of the show, its characters. In all honesty, the performances in Andor are probably the best acting in all of Star Wars, period. Diego Luna returning as Cassian Andor and Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma were both top-notch, as well as the show's original characters such as the new rebel named Luthen Rael portrayed by Stellan Skarsgård, and Denise Go as Imperial Supervisor Deja Miro really carried the show. Quick warning, this is where I get into spoiler territory right now. Skip to this timestamp to hear my final thoughts if you don't want spoilers. This show does a great job at expanding the Star Wars galaxy, giving us new places like Ferrix, Narkina 5, and Neamos. These aren't your planets with Jedi temples, but are mostly inhabited by your average galactic citizen, if anyone. It shows us not everything is lightsabers and Jedi and the Force and stuff like that. This makes the show's characters feel more real, and the stakes feel higher, even though we know it's gonna happen to some of the main characters. Cassian is definitely one of my favorite characters to come from the Disney Star Wars canon. At first, he's just this random guy who ends up being swept up in the rebellion, and ends up being crucial to bringing down the Empire. Saw Gerrera also appears in the show, establishing this kind of frenemy relationship with Luthen. In my Loki retrospective, I said how much I loved well-written character interactions. With the amount of characters Andor has, there are going to be a lot of these really neat dynamics. Luthen has this relationship with Mon Mothma, who is also a cool inclusion. There are 2 rebels named Vel and Clea who are also good inclusions. While they weren't entirely necessary, we also see Mon Mothma's daughter, Leda. Nice to see that Mon has family. We get to see Coruscant for the first time since the Disney purchase. It's not as beautiful as it was in the prequels, but that's to be expected because the Empire's been occupying it. It still looks really good, nonetheless. Out of all Star Wars media, Andor easily has the best version of the Empire. The aforementioned Deja Miro serves as his cold, intelligent supervisor on the hunt for Cassian. Also a couple scenes with the Imperial Senate. We see Deidre and other Imperials forming a plan to catch Cassian and the other rebels. Remember, Cassian's an outlaw in the galaxy, all starting when he kills 2 Imperial workers on Morlana 1. It's crazy how a character who first appeared to have little development in their debut movie to become one of the franchise's most important characters. What makes the Empire so serious is that it's scary. Even stormtroopers are pretty scary in the show, given their limited screen time. There's also one part where a TIE fighter flies over a valley and it sends chills into the rebels' spines. That's one TIE fighter. Imagine an entire battalion of those things soaring over Aldhani. There's even a flashback where we see Cassian's adoptive father getting executed by Imperial clone troopers. Makes you forget that those clones once fought on the side of the Republic. On the topic of flashbacks, the first 3 episodes have a couple of others. They show that Cassian wasn't born with the name Cassian Jaren Andor, and as a child, he was a part of the Star Wars equivalent of Native Americans, on a planet that's no longer hospitable to the Empire's activities there. Makes you realize that activities that sound harmless enough, like mining, can result in disaster, as long as the people in charge are careless enough. All this show doesn't have a ton of action. Those action scenes are still there, but are they actually good? Oh boy, this show has some of the tightest and most well-choreographed non-lightsaber action scenes in live-action Star Wars. The first real action sequence is in the third episode when Cassian and Luthen are escaping some Imperial officers. Unlike someone like Obi-Wan, Din Djarin, or Boba Fett, the duo can't kill all the officers, but still get off Ferrix. Another really cool sequence is in the 6th episode at the dam. Seems things are going well until an Imperial commandman collapses to the ground, and his fast-paced blaster fight breaks out. After that, the rebels steal an Imperial ship and fly off the planet, and the audience is treated to one of the most colorful visual spectacles in Star Wars ever. What makes Andor stand out from the other Disney Plus Star Wars series is that it doesn't feel like a miniseries. Instead, it feels like a proper TV show. I guess this explains why the first 2 episodes were put on cable TV. Remember how the Clone Wars had story arcs? Andor does so in a similar fashion, except the show's arcs happen in order, rather than random points in the story, and can very well be fan-edited into individual movies. The first story arc introduces us to the show's characters and situation. After escaping Ferrix, Cassian works with some rebels on Aldhani to raid an Imperial dam. Then Cassian arrives on some beach planet that I know is not Scarif, only to be sent to an Imperial prison. The prison arc is my favorite of him, as you can see Cassian working together with other prisoners to escape. The show is switching back and forth between the prison and other subplots. So whether you want a prison escape story or a political drama starring Genevieve O'Reilly, it's a win-win! The spotlight of this arc was Andy Serkis' character, Kino Loy, another prisoner who befriends Cassian during these episodes. And when the big escape scene happens, Kino reveals that he can't swim. This really hit hard for me because we knew Kino as a character and never see what happened to him afterward. I'd like it to be up to our imaginations to think about what happened to Kino after the escape. At the end of the road, there are the last 2 episodes. These 2 episodes show how consistently good Andor is. Episode 11 builds up to the finale in a natural manner, with the Empire taking advantage of the unfortunate passing of Cassian's adoptive mother, waiting for him to show up at the funeral, only for a recording to play from the Andor family's droid, B2EMO, of Marva Andor calling the people of Ferrix to fight the Empire. And of course, this fight breaks out and we see Deja Miro cowering in fear from your average citizens. You can see the plan really backfired for her, huh? And at the end of the episode, Luthen reveals to Cassian that he was going to kill him for knowing too much, showing that Saw was not the only and not entirely trustworthy rebel. Despite this, he lets Cassian live, hinting to another season that's not going to come out anytime soon. Oh, and at the end of the credits, there's a post-credit scene where Death Star is being assembled, so we can see some planets having inner cores exploding in 2024, or whenever the next season comes out. On my personal ranking, I'm giving Andor a 90 out of 100. The show could have had a little more focus on Cassian, and it could have been a little shorter. These flaws are minuscule compared to the show's highs. Please, Disney, make more shows like Andor and I'll keep giving you that $7.99 a month.